A very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to Mindful Parenting's webinar. We're very delighted that today we have another student from NUS who has kindly agreed to share her journey of growing up, as well as how mindfulness has shifted her relationships with her parents. And love to also hear from our two co-hosts, Frank Singham, our senior counselor, as well as Mei Chung, a former vice principal at MOE schools and had recently joined us over a year ago to head up the assist line that takes calls from distressed parents as well as students. So now I'd like to welcome Lorraine Yuan, who is going to be making a presentation to share her journey. Lorraine, are you here?
Yes. Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone.
So before she starts, I'd just like to mention that she's a year 2 geography student at NUS. And she had taken the course that I had taught called the Undefeated Mind, I think over 6 months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
So
2 semesters ago.
yeah. So I'd like to now hand over the screen to you and just checking that you're able to share. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, think everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, hi everyone. As mentioned, I'm Lorraine, and I'm from NUS. I've taken Prof. Angie's Undefeated Mind 2 semesters ago. Okay, so I would like to start off by sharing, this is the timeline of how I'm going to share my experience with mindfulness. So I will start off with some background about me. So, okay, so in my family, right, I'm the firstborn, so I'm the oldest in my family, and I have 2 younger sisters, 2 younger siblings. Yes. So, what happened with my parents, I would say, especially with my dad, would be from my most vivid memory would start from around primary 4 onwards. So, uh, studies wise, I was actually coping quite well with my studies up to P4. And then after that, somehow and another, when I was in P5, when I was promoted to a better class in P5, my results were not as desirable as compared to my previous like primary school years. And that's when I started remembering that my dad became really, really harsh on me because of my poor results in my studies. So from what I can remember, there were a lot of assessment books, and then my dad would love to, talk to my teachers every once in a while, and he would start asking me to read the Straits Times so as to improve my English, because I think that was the most worrying subject for him. And truthfully, I really did not enjoy all these things that I was told to do. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress because it was very, very sudden. And I even disliked the ways my father forced me to do this kind of thing, where I was actually imagining and to be in an environment where I would go out without him and without his expectations. Like, I was just thinking that I could, live very well just with my mom and my 2 other sisters. And because of this, sometimes I would try to avoid my father as much as possible at home. So I would communicate a lot more with my mom, and my mom would become the middleman between me and my dad, and that would cause a lot of arguments between my parents. And I think as a kid, it was just not very nice to be hearing a lot of arguments going on at home between your parents. Yeah, so as I was growing up, it just became something that I just didn't really like when I was at home. Yeah. And from this point onwards, whatever my dad did just stresses me out a lot. And precisely because I know that he's so concerned of my results, right? I became expecting a lot more from myself so that I would receive lesser of his scoldings. And that's I think that's around the point in my childhood where I started having having expectations of myself that were sometimes too high for myself to attain. And that's why whenever I didn't excel, there would be like 1,001 scenarios going through my head and on how like my father would react to my results. Yeah, and because my dad was so fixated on my results and everything, I felt that doing well was really the only way that I could make him happy and to make him proud. And there were a lot of painful times when I was in primary school and even in secondary school. And there was actually one memory which I had was, I think was at night when he came home from work. And I think every day I was expected to read the Straits Times and then let him know of a piece of news and then like summarize it to him so that he can listen. But I think on that particular day, I was just maybe really tired or something. And I just really didn't want to do it. And I remember, okay, because my dad loves to use the cane. So I remember just sitting on the floor. I was just hugging both my legs and I was crying really, really, really hard. And I just remember my dad just shouting at me, asking me to read the newspaper, but I was just really, really reluctant. And it was a very, very vivid memory because at that time, I'm not sure why, but no one came to my rescue, like not my sisters, not my mom. Like I was just left alone with my dad and I was just crying really badly. So that really left an impact on me. And I think even till now, there's still that fear of the cane and scoldings from my dad. Yeah. And because of how, you know, all the expectations of wanting to do well and everything, it became like ingrained in me to the point where even till now in university, right, I always have very high expectations of myself. And it's been very difficult to cope with this because I start to pressurize myself and it became very unhealthy on my mental health being, well-being. Yeah, because I could not tolerate or I just don't know how to tackle failure whenever I'm met with them. And to me, it just felt like with bad grades, I will have no future. And I just became very distraught. And it was because of this when I even cried when I didn't do well for my A-levels. Yeah, because I was worrying whether I was able to make it to university. Okay, then after that was what changed. So as for my father, right, as I slowly grew up, I'm still very stressed out by my father, like even till now. But now it's mostly because of his worries. Because he's very, very naggy. So sometimes his nagging and his worries stresses me out because some of the things that I've never thought of, he would have thought of it and didn't. And then he'll start worrying about it for me. And then he'll tell me about it. And then I'll start stressing about it. Yeah. And but the thing is, through the Undefeated Mind module, we were actually taught about the 9 foundational attitudes. And it really, really helped me in understanding how I can improve this relationship with my father. So there were times where I found that the worries that my dad had is actually quite excessive and quite ridiculous. And most times my first reaction was actually to, you know, just bicker with him. But after the mindfulness course, I actually thought of a few different actions that I can take instead. So sometimes it's still quite unbearable, especially when you know, when I'm tired and everything. But first, when he raises this kind of worries, which I feel are quite excessive, I will first take 3 deep breaths. Then sometimes my solution would be to just acknowledge his worries, so that to let him know that, you know, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. If not, sometimes I actually think of a response, but not a response that will cause both of us to continue bickering, but a response that would show that I understand his worries and I'll be taking actions to tackle them so that it will not actually lead to an argument between both of us. Yeah. And especially because during this circuit breaker time, he's also working from home and I'm also at home all the time. So there were quite a few situations like this, but it's become better to manage over time. And I also decide to start to communicate more with my father and in a more mindful way with lesser like irrational and hurtful words, because I've seen how he's been persevering a lot of tenacity on his side to really want to fend for the family when he's working from home. Yeah, but even though sometimes there's still struggles to get my point across, but it's in the works. Yeah. And then next would be myself. So as I've mentioned, the expectations of like wanting to have good grades from, it was like passed down from my dad, and then now it's ingrained in me, right? And because of that, it has really caused a lot of anxiety in myself. And some scenarios will be how whenever I receive my results, if they were not up to expectations, I will start spiraling into like thoughts on how I could have done better, or maybe I regretted not doing this earlier, not doing that earlier on, or maybe how I will be more stressed in my next few semesters in order to bring my CAP up. But through my mindfulness course, I learned to be kinder to myself. I mean, it really takes time, but I start to accept the fact that I can do my best and I can't change anything after my submission. Yeah, so from someone that, you know, after every exam, I'll go around finding all my friends for answers and asking like, you know, whether I'm correct, or like how I will fare during the exam, to someone that I just let go of let go of the paper after everything, because I know that I've done my best and there's nothing I could change, even if I know whether my answer is correct or wrong. Yeah. So I think that semester where I took this Undefeated Mind module, it was also a semester where I think the expectations part of wanting good grades is very difficult to, you know, overcome. But I told myself that whatever results I receive, I should just be contented because I've done my best. So for that semester, when I actually got back my results, there were actually I didn't fare as well as what I expected, but there were no moments where I was like beating myself up, or I was just very tense up about the fact that I had to buck up for the rest of my time in NUS. And at that moment, I actually recall how it would be so different if I wasn't you know giving myself a pat on the back. Yeah. And I became very, very thankful because there were just lesser anxieties that I would experience because of undesirable results. Yeah. And I know that whatever I've done, I've given my best and it's the past, and I won't be able to change it. So I've accepted that fact as well. And I think lastly will be how it has changed for me and my interactions with the people around me. So in terms of expectations, right, it's not just on grades. I've also experienced expectations with other people. So these kind of expectations, they really follow me everywhere I go. So whenever I show kindness to people, right, I actually realize that I do it with expectations that they have to reciprocate back to me. And because of this, I became very, very fixated on how people view me and how I always wanted to please people. And I did not want others to have a very bad impression on myself. And so it became very difficult to understand, like when I was taking this module, that being generous is not easy. But it has made me happier and it's made me realize, because during this circuit breaker period, right, I've been writing letters to my friend, and it's not because I'm expecting them to write a letter back to me because maybe I'm lonely or anything, but I just wanted them to feel the warmth, as though that they know that we are going through together, you know, as friends. And there was no there was no moments where I felt like I wanted a validation from them, that, you know, I wrote a letter to them or anything of that sort. So I feel like these are some of the few aspects in my life, especially like with my relationship with my parents, that have turned out for the better because I've taken this mindfulness module in school. So yes, that's the end of my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. That was a very heartfelt sharing and very courageous of you to put so much of your vulnerabilities out there. So I'd just like
Yes.
you to sense how you feel right now.
Um, uh, uh, like just now when I mentioned the episode of like just me and my dad, him shouting at me and me crying, I think even till now it's still affecting me a lot. I think like, okay, like right now I think I'm gonna cry, but it was a very, very traumatic experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And that experience, did it help you to be more confident of yourself or actually robbed you a lot of the confidence that you would have otherwise had growing up?
Um, I think because of that experience, I became very, very fearful of canes. But over time, as I grew up, I realized that um, canes just instill fear in me. It's just like a weapon that my parents use to sort of force me to do whatever they want me to do. But I've realized that it's important for me to convey what I feel about the canes to them and let them know how it's not the best way to discipline me as a child, and how yeah how much fear and how much hurt it has caused in me. So recently, I've actually convinced my parents to, use another method of use other methods of disciplining us instead of using the canes. Yeah. So I guess when at that point where they started using the canes until maybe I was in JC, I wouldn't have the courage or the confidence to do it because there's always a lot of fear. But I think gradually as I move on to uni and as I've gone through this module, it's given me more insights and more wisdom on how I can better improve my relationships through communication with my parents. Like, yeah, more mindful way of speaking to them. Yeah.
And you notice that it still has an effect on you.
Yes.
Yeah. So to the parents out there, I really like you to realize the effects of harsh parenting, um, on the effects that it has on the child, even though years later and even when they're grown up. So I hope that there can be kinder ways that you can adopt to guide your child rather than using the cane or anything that's really harsh. So I'd like to invite everyone to just let's just drop into our breath for a few minutes. And I can even feel that pain that Lorraine talks about in my own body. And maybe some of you out there feel that too. So if I could invite everyone to just close your eyes for a few moments, take 3 deep breaths. And just notice in the body as to where the sensations are. Like for me, I can feel it even in my arms, across my chest. The pain that Lorraine was talking about. So I invite all of you to breathe into that area in the body. Breathing in the compassion, breathing in the kindness, and breathing in relaxation. This technique works in relaxing the muscles that have all reacted to hearing the pain that Lorraine mentioned, because many of us have the ability to be compassionate, to have empathy, to be able to sense the pain that someone else experiences. And when we can relate to this pain, we are more likely to be kinder and to not inflict such pain onto anyone else, especially our child that we love. And now, for anyone who may have been inflicted this kind of pain when they were younger, to now put this episode in front of them. If you're seated at a table, put it on the table or put it on the floor. Creating a distance between what happened and how you view what has happened. So take it out of our mind and put it in front of us. And by looking at it now with that distance, what response or what responses do we now have towards what has happened in our life that we can't change? How can we respond to it differently? Can we also look at it from the perspective of the person that inflicted the pain, where he or she had come from, how he or she had been conditioned in his or her growing up years? And is there a possibility for us to forgive? And to allow ourselves to know where that pain is in our body, even though the physical pain is no longer felt. But we may be able to feel the emotional pain and start the journey of forgiveness. And now taking 3 beautiful deep breaths, especially breathing into that area in your body that you feel that emotional scarring or pain. And then open your eyes. So considering the time, I'm not able to do a longer session, but those of you who may be interested in how to heal from some of this pain, I will be conducting a 2-hour workshop at the Singapore Mindfulness Conference. That will be on the 22nd and 23rd of August. So do take a look at that program. So I'd like to now invite Frank and May to come on board. And if any one of you have a question to ask, please post it in the Q&A section at the button that you can click on the button at the bottom. So May, would you like to start with a question for Lorraine or any of your comments that you'd like to add?
Yeah. Yes, Lorraine. Thank you for your sharing. That's very brave of you. It must be so difficult to have a lot of fear when you are going into exam hall and to feel distraught, if you had not scored as well. So I'm wondering, during your teenage years in school, Did you see a counselor? Did you talk to a teacher? Who provide you that emotional support?
I think in my when I was in secondary school, I did not visit any counselor or any teacher for support, but I communicated a lot with my mother and as well as my grandpa, who I'm really close to. So sometimes whenever I experience any kind of scoldings, I would actually go and find my grandpa because we stay really close to each other, and he would listen to me, and he would just really offer me a lot of comfort, and he just tells me to do better every time. Yeah, and then sometimes I don't really communicate a lot with my mother about it. Maybe because I think at that point she was also actually very busy with her work, and there were several other commitments from her side as well. So yeah, I just went to my grandparents for a lot of support. Yeah, and they really offer me a lot of comfort that I felt that I couldn't receive from my parents. Yeah.
Glad to hear that. But was there any reason why you didn't want to talk to a teacher about it?
I think I was very shy in school. Like I would communicate with like my friends, but I think approaching a teacher or an adult wasn't something that I had the courage to do. Yeah, so I didn't approach them for any help. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Frank?
I don't know where to start, really. Yeah. Well, Lorraine, it's, yeah, it was hurting when I heard your story. You know, no child should be put through that kind of treatment when the focus should be on keeping them safe, helping them feel loved, helping them feel they belong. You know, that parents must understand that that is the priority for children when they are young. But when they don't do that, as Angie mentioned in that very wonderful 3-minute mindfulness session, there could be something that is happening to the parents themselves. They have their own demons to deal with, and it takes over them, and they don't understand the impact of their actions on their children. And so Angie is absolutely right in saying, you know, if we get onto the act of forgiving, we actually are opening the process of releasing the pain that has been caused to us. And I think that is very, very useful. And if you do it enough, long enough, you will establish a wonderful relationship with your parents. And they will also take stock of what they have done, especially your dad, going forward. And I'm sure he will bounce back. I don't think, as I said in some of the earlier seminars, parents get up in the morning to tell themselves, today I'm going to make life for my child difficult. No parent does that. So it's always an act of, as I said, they just don't do that right. And sometimes a little bit of education and a little bit of exposure to other parenting styles will do them good. So the one question I have for you is simply this, you know, there is always this battle between standards and effort, right? As far as the parents are concerned, Lorraine, standards to them means results, right? Results means you have put the effort. So if the standard is not there, that means you have not put in the standard, right? Or the effort, sorry. So it's like a formula, you know, outcome O equals effort on top over standards at the bottom, you know. But we all know that effort is at the end of the day, the highest valuable thing that we can introduce to ourselves, because we carry that into our adulthood and into our life. And everything that we do is always going to be about effort, because standards will vary as time changes, right? Circumstances change. Can you help parents understand this? That actually, if you put in the effort, they will achieve the standards that is appropriate enough for them to get onto their life. So parents need to understand this relationship between effort and standards and outcome. Can you help, given what you have been through and what you are now doing after mindfulness, that effort now is to you the most important thing. Help them understand that.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so growing up, like what was it Dr. Frank?
No, just Frank.
Okay, yeah, what Frank mentioned was how would I put this? It's like as if your child does not get A, means that they have not put in enough effort. I think that's something that my parents also taught, my father also taught, like, oh, you're not passing or you're not getting good grades, it's because you're not putting enough effort. Yeah, but I think over time I realized that everybody is different. The amount of effort someone puts in can achieve how would I say, a B grade might be a best effort for someone, but some other kids might get a A grade. Like for myself, right, I realized that no matter how much effort I put in, or like whenever I put in my best effort, I can only get maybe a B plus in NUS. And actually I'm very satisfied with that because I myself know that given the amount of time and amount of attention that I have on my hand, and I'm able to score that B plus, it's already very wonderful. Because for me to enjoy studying and enjoy the other things in life like friends and families, doesn't mean that I have to sacrifice every other thing and then just focus on studies just to get that A or the A plus. I don't really know how to put into words, but I start to see that how would I put this? Basically, each person can put in their best effort, but you wouldn't get the same results from all of them. Yeah, because everybody is different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Lorraine.
So effort, essentially at the end of the day, you put in the effort, you get a result, right? And
Yes.
if the result satisfies you, it
Yes.
gives you a sense of confidence in yourself, right? It
Yes.
elevates your self-worth, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that self-worth that then come back and motivate you to put in even more effort. So effort results in certain outcome. If the outcome matches the effort, it would give you greater confidence to pursue it even harder. And actually, it may end up with being a good outcome in the longer run. So what parents should look at is not the standards. They should look at the effort the child is putting into these studies, into his or her studies, and then try and motivate them to put in that effort. If they are not, then the parents have to figure out what is happening here. Why isn't the effort there? That is the most important thing.
Well, I think in addition to effort, I think parents also need to develop skills for themselves to know how to be happy, how to be accepting of their children, because each child is different and not every child is going to be performing in the way that they expect. After all, as parents, I don't think we were giving birth to our children for the purpose of getting some performance outcome from them. I believe that, when we conceive a child, it was really that we just want our child to be healthy. We want them to grow up to be happy. And then along the way, it's forgotten. And I have been teaching now students at the university as well as some of the schools. And I can see the need of that child to feel validated, to feel that their parents actually love them unconditionally. But many of them feel that if they want the love of their parents, they have to earn it. And I think that's really sad. The child shouldn't have to earn the love, Because as parents, when we give birth to a child, I mean, I think we give our love to the baby without conditions attached. So as they grow up, we shouldn't suddenly have conditions before our child feels that they are loved. So this is something that we need to reflect on. And when the child grows up feeling that they need approval from their parents, they also start to feel they need validation from their friends. So many of them feel that they need to do all the right things in order to win friends and to keep their friends. And they kind of lose themselves because they are not necessarily wanting to do certain things, but they do it because they don't want to be falling out of favor with their friends. So as parents, I really feel that it's important for us to approve of our children regardless. And please let them know. Please don't take it for granted, oh, they should know. No, they don't know. They need to hear it from us. And I've also noticed students that in school, when they have behavioral issues, and I talk to the parents, and so many of them have behavioral issues because their parents were very harsh with them. And they go to school and they start to bully other kids because it was their way of expending that pain. And really the issue that we have to address with these children were actually with their parents, the root cause. Well, else kids who have gentler, kinder, supportive parents tend not to have behavioral issues in school with their kids. I mean, from time to time, they may be a little bit naughty, they get out of hand on certain things, or say words that they're not supposed to say because they learned it from watching a show or from hanging out with certain kids. But that's not a behavioral issue that are being called out. So Lorraine, there are some questions posted in the Q&A section. Are you ready to answer some of them?
Yes,
and before
sure.
you are, okay. And before you take the first question, there is one, I think probably more targeted at us. This is regarding parents nagging on kids. What's your alternative method? I would say it's about helping to create the awareness. And this is something that we learn, whether as a counselor or as a mindfulness teacher, to help create the awareness so that the child would like to make the change themselves. So when I teach 18 students in a class, I don't nag them. I don't nag them to change. I just facilitate them to have a sense of awareness that they say, oh, wow, this is how I am right now, and I don't want to continue this way. Or I have issues with my mom or dad, and I want to resolve that. So instead of me going in there and says, do you have issue with your mom and dad? Well, you need to fix it. That's very different from asking them, well, do you have problems with your mom and dad? Yes. How would you like to change that? Would you like better relationship? And if you do, what do you need to do? And this is what motivates them to want to start repairing that relationship. So over to you, Lorraine.
Okay, so am I supposed to answer that question that you just posed?
You can, if you want to add to it, or you can go straight to the next one.
Oh, okay,
that
sure.
is for you to answer here.
Yeah, I personally felt that, okay, I will address a bit on the nagging questions. Personally, my dad nags at me a lot, and I realized that whenever he nags at me, he's like giving me an order to do something. And I just felt like I have my own time, I have my own space. If I want to do it, I will do it. So I realized over time, I would teach him on how he can phrase his naggings better, like make me understand that it's something that you can contribute to the family instead of nagging me to do it right now when I'm not very willing to do it. So I felt that I expressed my thoughts towards my dad about it instead of saying like, no, I don't want to do it, something like that. Yeah, so it made it better. He learned on how he can better convey his thoughts on wanting me and my sisters to do things better. so that we wouldn't be so upset whenever he nags at us. Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. Okay.
Okay, there's a question about someone's daughter not wanting to reveal her marks, and as a result of that, her friends are isolating her. I remember growing up in school, and because my parents approve of me and I didn't feel like I had to earn their love, it didn't matter if my friends didn't want to be close with me or hang out with me. I was just glad to have one friend, and that's all I need to go through school. Why do I need a whole group of friends and I have to be like them or do the things that they want me to do even though I don't want to do it? So I would say find another friend, or just have one good friend. That's sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
After all, we're not going to school for popularity contest. We're going there to learn.
Okay. When I was in secondary school, I would actually have the habit of comparing my answers. Yeah, but after that, when I came to uni, I realized that there's no need to do it. And actually, I was able to find friends who didn't think that I was a stuck-up because I didn't want to compare my answers, because my friends as well, they understood the fact that there was no need to compare answers after an exam because it's already been done and there's nothing that you can change about the paper. So comparing answers is just making themselves feel like more reassured. But I feel like personally, you would know that how well you have done or how you have not done well. So how about just not let that thought bother you so much and move on and think about something that is more enriching to your life, or maybe focus on the next paper. Yeah, that is
good.
an advice that I would share.
So the next question is your father treating your siblings in the same way?
Oh, okay. So this is something that I'm very thankful for, because my father is actually not treating my sisters the same way at all. It's very, 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 very different. And when I was preparing for this talk, I was actually reflecting it's maybe because I'm the oldest child. So there are a lot of expectations from my side. And I've actually asked my mom about this before, like as to how come the kind of treatment I'm given as compared to my sisters is so different. And she also pointed out it might be because I'm the oldest child and he really wanted me to, be a role model to my sisters. Yeah, so my sisters are also given a lot of assessment books and whatnot, but they are not forced to do it like how I am. They are given more flexibility in their time. So my sister, my younger sister is actually, without going through all these kind of things that I went through, she actually is able to cope with her studies as well. I mean, there are times where she doesn't do well and my father would stress at her, but there wasn't to the point where the cane would be brought up. Yeah, so it's very, very different from how I was treated when I was growing up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
This concept of getting our elder child to be the role model for the other children needs to be rethought. Because the role modeling in the family needs to come from the parents, not from the eldest child. Parents need to show accountability, responsibility, and ownership over their issues. And the children will pick it up from there. When we try and get the elder sibling, the elder child to be the role model, what we are doing is we are parentifying the child very early in their lives. And when you do that, then you remove the opportunity for the child to be a child, to grow up as a child, to enjoy all the goodness there is to be a child. And when they don't enjoy that goodness in one phase, they're going to carry that into the next phase. And guess what? They never get it accomplished, right? They won't get it satisfied. And they then continue to carry all these unsatisfied, unmet needs into the adulthood. And then they become very strange adults. So this concept of using your elder child to be the role model, I think you have to rethink that. Wherever possible, don't do that. Parents, you be the models. I think that should be the case.
Thank you, Frank. And perhaps you'd like to follow up with the question on how do you encourage your child to continue studying after facing many failures and the child has given up?
It's a tough one, very tough one. And I've seen this a few times in my counseling journey. It gets to the point where the child does not believe in himself or herself anymore. I've seen parents who go after the child because they're now concerned the child has disengaged, disassociated themselves with school and relationships because they feel completely low, and society and families in general, this need to fit in and this comparing of results, it's always there, right? So the child feels the judgment, they feel the assessment on a day-to-day issue, and they know when they're unable to perform up to a particular standard as people will expect, then they just withdraw themselves, and further it continues to be there. So I think it all comes down to competition, really, that forces children to withdraw into themselves. And this competition attacks self-esteem, right? That means society is all about self-esteem. I must have the bigger house or the most cars or the best club, blah, 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 And so I need to look good to the world. But we forget one thing. What is most important is self-worth, how we see ourselves. In this case, the child needs to understand herself. She needs to understand how good she is to herself. What is it that she like? How valuable a person she sees herself as, without any kind of comparison to the rest of the world. And if the parents can help the child feel that they are unique, that they have special skills and special values to themselves, and nobody else is going to be like them, and they are absolutely great, that self-worth will then take them into the other realms where they can do better. So loving themselves is the part this child needs. The parents need to help the child love herself, right? And there could be other reasons why she's not loving herself. Maybe body image, for example, right? A lot of kids today are very particular about body image. I need to look good, look pretty. I need to be attractive to the boys, And if it doesn't happen and no boys are coming to me, their friend, tell them content is not important. I mean, content is more important. Sorry, form is not important. Get this message over to them, and then slowly they will recover and bounce back, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. And just adding to that, focus on what your child is good in. Because if there are 6 subjects and the child is only good in 2 or 3, focus on those 3 or 2, instead of focusing on what he or she is not good at and then trying to fix it by constantly talking about the weak subjects and talking about how to bring the tutor in and get more involved and do more assessment and do more, putting even more effort. Because if they don't see the positive outcomes of their effort, then they will start to feel very demotivated. So instead, focus their mind on, okay, these 3 subjects you're really good at, great. And help the child to build on the strengths. I mean, imagine you go to work and you have strengths and you have weaknesses, and your boss focuses on your weaknesses instead of your strengths. Wouldn't you feel demotivated? We're all going to have strengths and weaknesses in whatever we do. Same with our children. So help them build their self-esteem by focusing on what they're good at, and forget about the parts that they're not good at, and let them have the time and space to work on them. Yeah. Okay, another question here is, okay, let me go back to the top. Lorraine, at the point in P5 when your grades were not as good, if you could have your way, how would you like your parents to react, or would you have liked them to do?
Or Okay, so actually, I actually had, I think P4, I actually had really good grades. And then when I recalled, I was hoping that, both my parents, or I was hoping that both my parents would have been, be there to collect my results together with me, and then be contented that I actually did very well, and, praise me for the efforts that I've put in. And not because how would I say, like, they just overlooked the fact that I did well in P4, and then they just move on to P5, and then they started focusing on the fact that I did not do well. And I think instead of being so harsh on me, because in P5 I was actually also very, very shy, and my teacher who was in charge of like most of my subjects was a male, so I was actually very shy about opening up on how I could do better. So I was hoping that I'm hoping that my dad wouldn't have been, he was constantly in contact with that teacher, and I felt very uncomfortable because I wasn't comfortable with that teacher. So I was hoping that maybe they could have communicated with another teacher. Maybe I was very close to my Chinese teacher, so I was hoping maybe they could have communicated with my Chinese teacher and then work out a way where they can help me improve my grades without having me facing the teacher that I'm uncomfortable with, or maybe my dad would I think because at that point in time he was also facing a lot of trouble with work, so his temper was also not the best. So if I could go back to that time, I would be hoping that he would have thought of better ways in helping me improve my grades instead of using such harsh methods, which I felt wouldn't have been the best in terms of me improving the subjects that I'm already very weak in. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think it's useful to know how employers select someone to be hired. Recently, I have also been sent 3 CVs of NUS graduates, and ultimately we picked someone that we felt would be able to connect with people because their grades were all there. I mean, not that we even look in detail of their grades, because at the end of the day, if you can get to university, it means that you already have a baseline of what you're capable of in terms of learning. But to be successful, you have to be able to communicate and connect with people, and that you have a heart. And this is not just because I'm in a charity now. Even when I was in commercial organizations, people who are just brainy but doesn't have a heart, they're not going to go that far. And I think you have seen it recently, how one candidate was being withdrawn because his colleagues or his platoon mates were exposing his conduct. So it's important for someone to be able to connect with someone else. And at the end of the day, we are working in a community of people. If we're influencing people. So grades are important, but not the most important. So let's not put too much emphasis on that. How about bad academic results? I like to state that my daughter had only 195 for PSLE, barely scraped into express stream, and she graduated from London School of Economics with a distinction. So what does that tell you about performance in primary school and subsequently in secondary school? At the end of the day, it's they only have one childhood. Let them have a good childhood growing up, so that they build not just the ability to do well academically, but it's about building the self-esteem and confidence. And there's a question related here about what if a teacher makes a remark, getting a B is not what the students in this class should get? I would go see this teacher. And I would tell this teacher to stop it. because education is not just about grades. And I wouldn't let her continue to harm my child's mind by keep repeating that. So as a parent, we have the responsibility to also feed back to teachers who may think that they're doing something or saying something in their benefit, but may actually be harmful. No different from parents thinking that if we push our child in a certain way, it is for their sake, but it's not. It's harmful. So May, would you like to add to this before Frank?
Yeah, I agree. And that is not motivating, to any student. I think encouragement, right? Pointing them to how they can work on their strategies, how to put in more effort. I mean, we believe in effort, but effort is more than just mere working hard and putting in the hours. And I think parents also need to realize that, in the past, I used to say, oh, this person can sit down 2 hours to do a revision, whereas the other child can only put in 1 hour, and that's the max. So we need to understand each child, their ability to sit down for long hours, to be engaged, to be working hard. It means different to different child, right? And really to focus on effort, meaning the studying, the putting in the hours, the strategies, and the attention and the focus. So I think teachers can empower children to do that, to really look at the strategies to answer questions and not to try to motivate children this way. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Frank?
Oh, I will help the teacher review all the MOE advertisements that we see on TV trying to recruit teachers. The focus has never been on grades. The focus has been the teacher-child relationship, right? I mean, if MOE is pushing out that message, and why is it sometimes our teachers are doing that? And I think if you don't mind a technical answer, I know this. Sometimes it's the school itself that takes it on. The whole school feels that we must have certain numbers of A's and certain numbers of B's and certain numbers of students with this kind of standards, and it filters down to the teachers, and the teachers become the agents for that school policy. So, no, at the end of the day, yeah, it's the teacher-child relationship, student relationship that is the most important. Bring out the best in the student. Everybody, it has to be a village. The school is just one item in the whole village. Then you have the parents, then you have the grandparents, and you have all the other friends. We need the entire village to raise a child. So let not just one person bring a child down. Yeah.
Thank you. Lorraine, question here is, how do you feel about being with your father now? Are you still fearful?
I think actually last time when I was in primary school, right, I don't really get to see my father very often, but whenever he comes home, right, we always have to test the waters. We have to see whether he's in a good mood or not. So yeah, I mean, we do still live in fear, like not just me, but like me and my sisters as well. But I think it has become better because I guess whenever the things that his environment is going well, like his job is going well, his mood will be different. So now that things are more stable, we're not that fearful whenever he's in the house. And I think adding on to the fact that I've moved out for 2 years while I was staying in school, I wasn't able to interact much with my father. But whenever I come home, because he hasn't seen me for quite a while, it's actually not that fearful anymore. It's actually quite loving to be able to come home and hear his worries. Yeah.
So the distance has actually been beneficial, right? And the time of being away from each other probably has helped you both see each other a little differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another question is, was your mother very supportive of you? If you're able to find comfort from your mom and the support from your mom, would that have left a scar on you as much?
Actually, I cannot recall much, but I think I didn't find my mom for a lot of support was because I fear the fact that they were gonna start arguing because of me again. So maybe I think maybe it was because of that I went to my grandparents instead of my mother. But my mom was someone who I was very comfortable with sharing with her a lot of my thoughts. I feel like even till now, there are some things which I wouldn't want to mention it to my dad because he will come up with a thousand more necks at me, like, which is very, very different from my mom. My mom does not nag at me. She actually places a lot of trust in me, and she's very hands off. Like all that she worries about is maybe like where I'm going, who I'm going with, what time I'm going home. But she never like asks too much into it. Yeah. So that actually made me feel like I'm able to share more with my mom. And my mom is someone who actually likes to, we only have a 24 years age gap. So she actually likes to understand more about what youngsters do nowadays. Even at work, she has younger colleagues that allow her to do that. So it's been quite easy nowadays to share a lot of things with my mom. And it's nice to be able to have a parent which I can have a better communication with. Yeah, someone which I can share my worries and she would understand because as a parent and as a teenager that she has gone through before. Yeah.
So to all the moms out there, be a good friend to your daughter. So the last question here is, I used to talk to the teachers in primary school whenever they make such comments, but it made it worse for the kids. So now my kids tell me not to approach the teachers. Well, I think when you approach the teachers is to make sure that your message is very clear and precise. It's not to make them feel bad and they get defensive, but rather to let them know that this is harmful to the kids and to please not do it. Keep the conversation very short, just a few minutes, make it firm and clear to the point. Because we have seen parents who go to school and they take a long time to make a point, and after a while the teachers just don't listen. So maybe this is something that May can comment because she had been in the schools before and probably have seen many parents, and how you take or how teachers take some parents more seriously and disregard some of the other parents.
Basic thing is mutual respect. But if you respect the teacher, you will mindfully put across your message. And I think that they also want to understand your child better too, so that they can provide the adequate help for the child. So I think raising the awareness in a respectful manner will work, and they will be receptive about it.
Thank you. I have also been working with some teachers, and the amount of stress that they experience is quite high and causing their burnout. Many of them go home ruminating about parents. And I know one school principal who had said to me that he is retiring not because of the kids. He's retiring because of the parents, because he's so stressed by parents going to him to complain about anything and everything. So I think as parents, we need to also empathize with the teachers and to also seek clarification first, because sometimes the children have selective hearing. They may have taken things out of context. So it's really important for us to seek clarification and then to express perhaps some of our concerns and to understand both sides of what is being communicated. So thank you, May, for sharing the insight from the perspective of teachers. Frank, anything you'd like to add before we close our session for today? You're muted, Frank.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Today's webinar, I think, has raised some very interesting trends in the questions about, parenting and raising children with a lot of love and a lot of care. The point I like to make is parenting is not only from the time the child is born till the time the child graduates from university. It goes beyond that. Parenting is about being there throughout your child's journey from pre-teen to teen to pre-adult, adult, into parenthood, into marriagehood, and you're going to be there throughout your child's life, and they are going to be coming back to you time and again to source for your wisdom that you have attained in your life. So don't see it as just a short journey and then destroy that relationship and then not grow that child to become resilient and functional throughout their entire life. And that is what the parents' role should be, to make them functional throughout their entire life. Teach them ownership, responsibility, and accountability. And if you can do that early and grow them and establish a good relationship, you're going to have them next to you throughout your entire life. Now, isn't that wonderful? And you're going to be loving your kid is going to be loving you. So see this as an investment for the whole livelihood of your children and not just during the school time.
Thank you for those wonderful words, Frank. And Lorraine, would you like to share any insights to any more parents out there who may be feeling that they may have been a bit too harsh with their kids? What do they do now if they did in fact been very harsh with their kids? What can they do to help heal that relationship now?
I think one thing is to really start showing more warmth and more love to your child, because me as a child, I felt that it's really scary to be coming home every day and facing my father. Like I've mentioned before, I was hoping to even grow up in an environment without him. So sometimes being too harsh on your child is really not the way to help your child grow. Yeah, I feel like I've become someone who worries too much of for myself because of how my dad has done it on me, and it's caused extra anxiety, which I think is not needed. Yeah, because I feel that all of us have ability to learn how to, grow up and be responsible for ourselves and responsible for our grades because of the environment that we are in. So there's no need for parents to give extra stress, because at some point in life, the child will realize that it's something that they need to take note of. Yes. So yeah, I'm happy to be able to start receiving more love from my parents, even though it's at this age. But at least my sisters are receiving it at a younger age than I am. So it wouldn't be that traumatic for them while they're growing up. Yes.
Thank you. And May, would you like to wrap up with a few words on how parents and teachers can form a better partnership that would support the child's growth?
Yeah, I think, well, teachers have a lot to do, so if parents could be selective, like when it is important enough to approach the teacher, and also knowing your child, like what Lorraine said, that I would have preferred that, my parent communicated with the Chinese language teacher instead of the other teacher. So know from your child, like which teacher could provide the help better, right? Yeah. And really, like I said before, mutual respect and mindful speech will be good enough. Right?
Thank you.